In this presentation, I will be talking about the Assured Lesson Plan for the copyright lesson. In order to analyze the learners, I will first look at their general characteristics. The students who this lesson is aimed for are sixth grade students who are in a general education setting or are in an inclusion setting. Students range from 11 to 13 years old and are a mix of boys and girls. A majority of the students are Hispanic. However, there are other ethnicities that are involved in the classroom. There is a prevalence of low socioeconomic families in our school. When looking at the specific entry competencies that these students have, they are able to use different presentation tools, record audio, and they know how to create and upload videos. Looking at their learning differences and needs, many of the students like to incorporate movement into their learning and generally do not like to sit still. Many students like to work with others in groups, but there are also several that would rather work by themselves. State standards and objectives. For our ISTE student standard, we are focusing on intellectual property. Students demonstrate an understanding of and respect for the rights and obligations of using and sharing intellectual property. And for our Texas School Library Standard, we're looking at learners and educators practice the ethical and legal use of information, including transformative fair use, intellectual freedom, information access, privacy, proprietary rights, and validation of information as approved in local policy, EFA, federal law, First Amendment, and best library practices. Our learning objective is that given a choice of different presentation tools, the sixth grade students will create a song, video, or story explaining copyright and its rules, including 3 examples of situations involving copyright. Selecting strategies and resources. The strategies that will be used will be a mix of teacher-centered strategies and student-centered strategies. For the teacher-centered strategies, I will be introducing the assignment and I will be setting guidelines and requirements for the assignment. For the student-centered strategies, students will be creating digital presentations of knowledge of copyright. The resources that I have selected are going to be different depending on which assignment the student decides to do. For the song resource, students will be using Music Lab Song Maker. For the video resources, students will be using an iPad and iMovie. And for the story resource, students will be using Story Jumper. All of these materials have been reviewed and they have been chosen because they are appropriate for the age level. They are not biased, they're free for students to use, and they are easy for students to use. To utilize the resources, I will start off by previewing those resources. I'll look at the resources to identify potential problems that students might have and to determine what portions of the resources students will utilize. Some of these tools that I have selected for students have many different options that students can choose from. So I will make sure that students know which options they will be using. I will also be looking at them to see what problems the students might have with the use of them. Even though they're easy to use, students may be confused about some of the features. I will then prepare the resources. So I will make a handout of tips that will be for each of the resources being used. Those tips will be there to guide students through the use of them and to help them with any problems that they might have. I will also be making a checklist of criteria for the assignment so students can make sure that they have all of the necessary items in their assignment. I will then prepare the environment for the class. The assignment will take place in the library. iPads will need to be charged and have iMovie. So I need to make sure that those iPads have that app downloaded. The camera and microphone need to be checked on the iPads to make sure that they are functioning properly. A designated space needs to be created for recording videos so that it is out of the way of everybody else that is in the library. Desktops will be used for the song and story creating. Uh, those will not require as much movement as the videos will, so the desktops will be in a different area of the library. Headsets with microphones need to be available at all desktops so that students can listen to their assignments and so that they can have the microphones to speak clearly into the computers. And then the websites need to be opened on the desktops ready for students to use. I will then need to prepare the learners. So I will give a lesson on copyright. The assignment will be explained after that, and the presentation tools will be introduced. Students will be given a checklist of assignment expectations and a rubric of how they will be graded. This assignment will require learner participation. For the practice part, students will create a presentation, which will be either a song, video, or a story that will explain copyright rules and give examples of situations involving copyright. Students will work collaboratively with other classmates using various forms of technology to complete their assignment. And as far as feedback goes, I will be meeting with small groups of students to discuss their ideas and their plan for implementation. I will give students feedback on how to improve the quality of their work and make sure that their presentation meets the requirements of the assignment. Lastly, to evaluate and revise the assignment, I will evaluate the impact on student learning. Student learning will be evaluated by the use of a rubric, and it will evaluate the assignment for having the necessary requirements and also for an accurate description and accurate examples of copyright. I will evaluate and revise strategies and resources after the assignment has been completed. In order to do this, I will collect student feedback on the pros and cons of the resources. I will gather recommendations from students about other presentations that could be acceptable besides a song, video, or story. I will then, after the assignment is done, reflect on the lesson and consider whether students were able to learn from the presentation and if more guidance was needed with the presentation tools. And lastly, I will decide if students were able to use the tools effectively or if other tools would have been more beneficial.